Nia. Thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful that we get to interview you. I would love if you could introduce yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Nia Rainer, and I am the author of a self-development book called Rise.
Amazing. I would love if you could tell us what your book is about.
Yeah, for sure.
Sure.
Rise is a book about overcoming challenges in order to live the life that you want. When it comes to the concept of my book, it's the following. So, when you appreciate your upbringing, have a vision for yourself, and develop a strategy to execute on that vision, regardless of where you come from, regardless of your circumstances, you can be successful and have the drive to succeed. This message is something that I thought was really important, especially someone as a first generation college student, as someone who is a first time entrepreneur and identifies with several minority groups. In my book, I incorporate several stories of people from these backgrounds as well to demonstrate that same concept and to really show people that when it comes to your own goals in your life, regardless of what you're going through, there is a way to do it.
Love that. What inspired you to write your book?
Yeah, great question. I started writing Rise in 2020. I was a junior at High Point University at the time, and I was working on networking with other college students on campus and also trying to get that big first corporate internship. I had the opportunity to work alongside a whole bunch of people, and I was pretty lucky to uh, get some internship offers and then COVID happened and I had my internship canceled, which was pretty sad in my opinion. But I think during this time, I had a lot of time to reflect. I was also doing school remotely as well. And this is where a lot of the reflection on my own self happened, but also the people around me. The conversations that I was having with people was quite interesting because during this time of political unrest and a lot of uncertainty with how people are feeling about the state of the world, what I came to realize in the conversations was yes, part of it was that the world was being unpredictable in that moment. But a huge aspect of the conversations that I was having with people was they personally felt like they couldn't do what they wanted to do because they felt incapable of their own abilities. And for me personally, that was pretty tough to grasp because even though I had my own personal challenges from the environment that I grew up in, I grew up in a very matriarchal family. I didn't have a present father figure growing up. However, I knew despite the unorthodox upbringing that I had, I knew that I was able to really accomplish a lot in my life because part of it was my own mindset, but also my own drive to succeed. And so I started writing chapters about how I was able to overcome my own challenges in my own life. And that was the first draft to Rise. I submitted the first draft to New Degree Press, and they said, we'll publish this, but you'll have to raise $5,000 in 30 days. And I raised $6,000. And then from there, got to the whole editing process with my editor. I got it published, and the rest is history.
Love that. When you were writing your book, who were you thinking of when it comes to who your book is for?
Yeah. When it comes to Rise, I think what's really powerful about the book itself is that it reminds me of a clip of Viola Davis, and she mentioned in a previous interview that when it comes to representation, it's important because it's a physical manifestation of your own dreams and abilities. And as someone that has always loved to read, write, anything in the creative space, I've always loved watching shows on Broadway, growing up in New York City, watching films and being able to really appreciate art. I've always agreed with that sentiment that representation is really, really important. And I totally agree with what Viola Davis said. And when it comes to self development books, there's a lot of messages about being able to go to where you currently are and start making your life better. But there is no representation for a lot of people. And so when I recognized that, I wanted to include stories of people that looked like me, that had similar experiences to me, and also just bring up experiences of people that aren't necessarily talked about. So I brought up stories of people who are first generation college students, people that started their own businesses for the first time, people that are of immigrant backgrounds, and also people who identify with several minority groups. That was a pretty exciting moment to just share their stories because I think it's really exciting to see a different perspective as to how people come about with their story to success.
Love that. How long have you been writing and what made you really sit down and start?
Yeah, great question. I would say for me, writing was something that I always loved doing in my pastime. From a very early age, I loved being in all things creative. I was in dance class, I was in theater, I was in art, and I would write a lot of stories growing up. A lot of what I wrote as a child were stories about girl superheroes, and I wrote fan fictions of the boy bands and the dance crews that I liked as a kid. And a lot of what writing was to me was an outlet to really demonstrate to the world how I felt about what was going on in my personal life at the time. And what I realized with every piece of writing that I wrote was I was able to truly be authentic with myself and the stories I had to share with the world. And when it came time to start writing my book, it was just a lot of ideas that I had in my head as to how people can really make their lives better. And to really back that up, I went and interviewed a lot of people to just demonstrate that example of showing how people can overcome the odds despite their situation. So I had the opportunity to interview a first generation college student like Joe Michaels, who was a director of the Today Show on NBC for many, many years. And the fact that he was able to get to that point was very fascinating to me. I've also had the opportunity to interview Denise Soler Cox, who was the founder of Project Enge, a nonprofit organization that really connects with Latino American communities, and also several other entrepreneurs and individuals that have really honed in a light as to why they're able to really make their mark in this world. And so when it comes to my writing, I'm glad that I was able to use my gift to share those stories of those people and also really just demonstrate to the world that what I was talking about in my book is something that I also emulate in my own life as well.
Love that. That's so amazing. What is your schedule like when you are writing a book?
My schedule when it came to the process of writing Rise, I think it was very challenging because I was also a full-time student at the time, and I also was taking on a job part-time. So, in terms of what I would do is around 5 a.m., I would write a draft of at least 2 chapters and or edit a chapter before I would get ready to go to class around 9 a.m. So give it like 2 or 3 hours and then get ready for class. Between 9 to 1 p.m., I'm going in between different classes and making sure that I'm doing everything that I can for my studies. After that, I would go back to my writing and make sure that I would see the notes from my editor, implement any feedback that I got from her, and just try to think about that for my next writing session. Then go into my part-time job on campus, and if there was time to really go into the editing process to really see how I can make the next chapter better. So thinking about my research, thinking about how I'm sharing the stories, and also just thinking about what message I want to portray and is it relating to the overall concept of the book. And after that, just repeat the whole cycle over and over again. And it was a very challenging time because I was doing a lot at once. And now that I'm published and finished not just my bachelor's, but my master's, I am definitely in the works for writing other projects at this time. So in terms of my schedule now, it's pretty similar going through my drafts, working with my editors to make sure that I'm producing the best work possible.
Amazing, love that. What do you need in your writing space to help you stay focused?
A lot. I would say when it comes to the writing process for me, there is so much content that I could think of and so many ideas that sometimes it's really hard for me to get ideas on paper. And so, something that I do during the writing process is if I can't physically write it out on a piece of paper or type it, I would use a transcription service like Otter AI and start talking. And once I would transcribe that session, just being able to see the transcription of what I was saying and then edit my transcription and turn it into a chapter or a blog or whatnot or article and just really make sure that I'm producing the best message possible.
Amazing. What is your favorite writing snack or drink?
Oh, that's a good one. I would say I'm pretty boring when it comes to the writing snacks because I try to eat before or after a session, but typically I either have a glass of water or a glass of milk. I don't know why I've just been obsessed with the plain old glass of milk lately. It helps me just stay super focused. I don't really drink coffee that much, but if I do have coffee, I love my iced coffee for sure.
Love that. What type of books do you personally enjoy reading?
Yeah, great question. I would say for me, I really love having self-development books just so that way that I could learn from other authors, how they're being able to produce their own content. And I started going back into fiction lately as well. I really love thriller stories. It keeps me on my toes and helps me see how I'm able to get into my readers' heads and think about how I'll able to surprise my own audience with my own writing, which I think is really, really cool. So, yeah.
Love it. Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer?
Yeah, for sure, definitely. I would say for me, I had a lot of inspiration when it came to my own writing. I would say one of them being for self-development, just definitely Mark Manson, who is the author of The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. I will also say Elizabeth Acevedo, who is the author of The Fire with the Fire on High, who is mostly in the fiction space, but a lot of her stories pertain to the Latino culture, which is a huge portion of my own personal upbringing. And I would just say there's plenty more, but those are the top two that I can think of.
Love that. What books did you grow up reading? Did you have an all-time favorite?
Oh, wow. I would say growing up for me, I really loved a lot of kid comedy. I was obsessed with Junie B. Jones, but I was also obsessed with the Captain Underpants series as well. I had a lot of Beacon Girls books, with one of them being Charlotte in Paris, which was like a whole group of girls that were taking on lots of adventures. So a lot of those books got me really excited as a kid to write my own stories. And I think it starts to make sense as to why I really like reading a lot, writing a lot of superhero stories as a kid as well.
Love that. Now, on the other side of that, as an adult, what are your favorite series or authors that if they come out with something, you automatically grab it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say for me right now, I would definitely say anytime Elizabeth Azevedo writes something that's an author that gets me really excited for sure. I also just get really excited with self-development books. I get super, super excited for a lot of books in that space. I'm trying to see who would be my favorite author at this time since I'm trying to get more book recommendations for sure. But definitely Elizabeth Acevedo at this time.
Love that. What would you tell someone just starting out with reading again?
Yeah, when it comes to getting back into the habit of reading, I think something that a lot of people kind of struggle with when they get back into reading is a lot of times when we are exposed to different writing styles and whatnot, it's because we had an assignment in school. So a lot of the time, students were reading books and different materials because their teacher assigned it. And so a lot of times people feel like reading is work. But once you get to that stage where you're able to read whatever you want, whenever you want, I think that's one of the most awesome places to be in because there's so many things that you could choose. I personally believe that it's you're better off picking up a good book compared to having streaming Netflix or Hulu for the night because there's just a ton more options. So once you get to that stage where you have that free time to read, or if you don't right now, first of all, I would say definitely make that time because reading to me personally is a escape from a reality and it could take you to so many different worlds. Number one, but number two, what gets me excited about reading, and I hope that people listening right now can really hear this, is it goes back to that whole thing that I was saying earlier about what Viola Davis was saying about the idea of representation. You could put yourself in different shoes of the characters that you're reading and being able to go after different things and connect with these characters. And that's something that is just really exciting to me overall.
Love that so much. On the other side of that, what would you tell someone just starting to write their own book?
When it comes to writing your own book, well, first of all, if you're going to take on that initiative, just you starting that first chapter, congratulations. because there are so many people in this world that say they want to write a book, but very few act on it and very few publish it. So at this point, the goal is to get you to finish that book and share your story with the world, right? And once you're in that stage of writing that book, I will say your first draft is going to suck. Your first draft may not be the best thing that you want it to be, but at the end of the day, a first draft is a first draft. And the more you write, the more you'll get better at being able to convey your message, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, but also just having the idea in your head that I have something that I want to share with the world, and I know that this will make an impact. As long as you keep that in your mind as you're writing, keep going. Find people that will help you support your process, whether you decide to work with a publisher or whether you decide to publish your book independently, just making sure that you get the feedback from people that want you to succeed. So getting editors, getting beta readers, that's going to make a huge difference into the final product. And that will make a huge difference into whether or not you'll be proud of that book that has your name on it.
Love that. What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
I I never really I haven't had this question in a while. Um, I think when it comes to what people are surprised about me is when they first meet me, I tend to be fairly introverted and come off as pretty shy. But once I have conversations with people about my ideas and what I'm passionate about, they get a whole different impression of me, which is something that shocks a lot of people. And I just really hope that I get to meet as many people as possible to just shock more people because I think it's just really funny once they find out. So, yeah.
Love that. Is there anything you would like to say or add?
Yeah. So, I would definitely say at this point, for those listening in right now, Rise is definitely a book that you should definitely check out to really help elevate your life and to hear stories of people that really defeated the odds in several occasions. Being able to hear about things like learning how to become your own superhero, having the opportunity to learn about the imposter syndrome and how to overcome it, but then also just recognizing what you're capable of. And I just really hope that you get a chance to uh, read it, listen in, and would just love your feedback in the end.
Amazing. Where's the best place for readers to find your book? I know some readers love signed copies. Is that an option? And the best place to connect with you?
Yes. So I currently have a website, neorainer.com. My book is currently on Barnes and Noble, Amazon, and several retailers as well. And my Instagram is Nia M. Rainer, and my TikTok is Nia Rainer. Currently, if you would like a autographed copy, feel free to DM my Instagram or TikTok, and I'll gladly uh, communicate with you on how to get that done.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful that we got to interview you. We'll be sure to drop those links in the show notes so everyone can find you. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Courtney. Thank you so much for having me.